Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Woodstock, Georgia, it's time for Cherokee Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to Cherokee Business Radio, where business leaders get the word out about the important work they're doing to serve their market, their community, and their profession. I'm Joshua Kornitsky here with you. And today we've got three guests in the studio, and I'd like to start by introducing Jeane Gutierrez, the founder of Action Plan Sales. Jeane, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. We sure appreciate it. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So what I do is I help business owners get more sales. That's what I tell a 5-year-old.
Well, then you're on the right the right track with me.
So basically, to kind of break it down is I build a path to more sales so that it's consistent and repeatable. And that's what I do because there's so many small business owners out there.
So what types of things do you see when you're working with these business owners? Do they make a lot of the same mistakes?
Yes, they absolutely do. Because you really think about it, right? You're a small business owner. You go into business. Why? Because you have a passion or you have an expertise in a certain area. But did you go into it because, hey, I really love sales quotas. I really love sales training and metrics. No, that's not why. So.
Okay. So when you're helping the folks that you're helping, what are some of the reasons that they struggle?
Oh, gosh, I would say the biggest thing when it comes to small and medium business owners is they struggle because they're growing. And what they do is they promote or they put someone in that business sales spot or a business manager, their top person. So, maybe their partner or someone who is great in operations and great out in the field, doing whatever it is in the trades, or a professional person, they put them in the sales role. And, that's not the right thing. I mean, so you're actually promoting someone, but they're not a salesperson. So that's the biggest mistake.
So if let's say they've put that person in and they may be the wrong person in the wrong seat, or even the right person, but in the wrong seat, what do you do when you get involved with them to help get that on track?
Okay. So the first thing is, and they're not, so everyone does this. It's not unique. And the reason they do this is because they say, well, this person has done such a great job. They know the business, and it could be even the owner themselves. They know the business so well. So of course they're going to be the ones to sell it, to do the sales. And in the beginning, yes, that works. But when you're trying to scale, what I do is I come in and see what the gaps are first. You got to assess. And a lot of times, the number one thing is they don't have a process. It's all in their head. So it's really hard when they're trying to hire that next person to get all that stuff out in the head and verbally or do a ride along. And that only works so much. So
Sure.
Basically, you have to have something that's very concrete. Like, what is the strategy? Who are you trying to target? And then what does that actual process look like from getting the lead in, how to close the sale, and then really, how do you follow up? And how do you track success? All of those things are things that have to be put down like in a sales playbook.
So that's a great concept. The first thought that occurs to me, because using the example of having that person who grew with the business sort of organically, right? They don't necessarily know what all those steps are. All they've done is repeat what's worked and avoided what hasn't worked. So how do you help them kind of make sense of the chaos?
So what's great is I come in and sometimes I don't even know what the business is. And that's better because, you have that blind spot because, like you said, you know so much about it. So the customer or your target market does not, and you're trying to solve a problem that they may not know that they have or a pain point. So it's really asking questions like a 5-year-old. Why? Why this? Why that? By doing that, then you can actually break it down so that it's very easy to explain and very easy to ask questions. And then I'm going to get into that later. But the most important thing is some of my colleagues here were talking about that, when you're selling something, people buy based on emotion. It's not logic. And they can't buy on emotion unless they feel something. They can't feel something if they don't understand. So there are all these things happening in the background, but that business owner, they just know it. It's part of their DNA. They hire someone, they're not going to know it. So you got to break it down. It's like when you're training someone, you're a car mechanic. And of course, everything is, it's second nature to you. You come in, I'm like, okay, I know I can do it if you just tell me what's what.
So, okay, you've gone in, you've helped them create a playbook. They've now got a process and they begin to sell. What happens when the sale outpaces or the selling outpaces their ability to manage or to lead that? Because oftentimes you've got the founder who's busy doing other things, right? And now they've got this gap where they've got selling, but they don't have leadership. How does that?
Oh, okay. So, that's a key too. They're selling, but they really should have someone that's managing the day-to-day, the questions that they have. So, salespeople are innately very self-sufficient. They want to be, Do you have the right incentives in place? Do you have the right commission in place? Depending on what your company goals are, what are you trying to sell? So you put the incentives focused on that. Then you have to look at their activities because you know what? If you don't put that in there, you may have someone just making 1 or 2 calls a day. So there's lots of things that a manager looks at. It's not a fun thing, but it's something that needs to happen.
Right, but do you help them in the event?
Yes, I can help them as well. So what I do is I'm what's known as a fractional VP of sales. And so what that does is for small businesses, they may not be able to afford a full-time sales manager. So I can help manage maybe 1 day a week, maybe a couple of hours a week, whatever it is to scale. So the idea is that I help them grow to a point where they can now hire a full-time sales manager because a sales team does need someone managing them.
So you've come in, you've established a playbook, you've helped them work out their compensation, their bonus plan, and then you've kind of rode shotgun while they get everything tightened up and in order. Do you just wash hands or do you help them find that next right person to fill that chair?
Oh, I love how you tee that up. Yes, that is something that I can do as well. So it's really just as from beginning to end, beginning like really putting a strategy in place, rolling up my sleeves, putting that process together, and then finding that person. So yes, there are things to look for, to make sure that there's a personality fit, a culture fit, a skill set fit, depending on that industry.
That makes perfect sense. So how did you learn to do all of these things?
Oh my gosh. It just over time, I started out actually in advertising. So a creative field and marketing, but I fell into sales. But I was very fortunate because I ended up with a Fortune 500 company. And so they have the resources. Those large companies, they spend so much money on training. So I was trained for so many things. And I didn't realize that those processes that I learned that I, used was what helped me become successful. And then later when I was in leadership, I just kind of used the processes that I was taught. But then later, when I wanted to find something more meaningful, because, big companies, you're just looked at as as a number, right? So even though I was doing well, it starts over and resets the next year.
Sure.
So I'm like, what is wrong
What
with
have
this
you done
picture?
for me lately?
Exactly. So the most meaningful was when someone said, there's this business owner. He's got a small business, $3 million, and he's struggling. But he's been in business for 20 years. And when I went, I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I was like, really surprised that they didn't have a CRM, which is, a software to be able to track activities. They kept going through salespeople every 9 months, which
Why?
is crazy because they did not know who they were hiring. They were promoting people from within that they thought was good, and it would be frustrating for them, for both sides. Or they would hire outside and think, oh, this person did really well in sales in this industry. Well, so there's just a lot of things that go into it. So, but I found that helping him, the CEO, was much more meaningful because I felt like I could see the impact I was making by just putting processes in place. He's not alone. I mean, there's so many business owners out there that just don't have these because, like I said before, they go into business not thinking about this. They're just focused on that one product or service. And then they get to this, usually they're very successful because they have one or two really large clients and it's referral based and they hit a plateau. Yeah.
Well, and you and I were talking earlier, and you had mentioned that there was this really complex relationship between competition and business growth. And I feel like this is maybe where that would fall in.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain so that people understand?
Yeah. So actually, a lot of people, owners and salespeople are afraid of competition. And I had to learn this over time. The competition is actually good, especially if you really know who you are as a company, what your value is, and how you're different, because then you can capitalize on that and really set yourself apart and actually kind of brainstorm on what additional value you can bring. But you need to do the work. You need to understand who your competition is, right? But also the reason competition is good is because if you're the first to market, you have to spend all this marketing dollars to really educate people. If there's competition out there, people already know what your product or service is. You just need to stand out.
Okay.
And so that is a marketing and a sales feat. And marketing and sales are different.
No question
Yeah.
at all. No question at all. Two completely different disciplines. So when you've helped people and they begin to grow and they start to experience a level of success, is that the end of your engagement with them, or do you work with ownership to continue on towards some eventual sunset?
Yeah, that's the goal, because the goal is I am not looking to work full time for a company. I'm looking to help several. And that's, like I said, that's what's meaningful for me. I am now able to put and see the impact that I make. So that is my goal, is to get to that point where they're self-sufficient. And it really depends on them. Maybe I'll check in once a year, but really the goal is for them to be self-sufficient with a sales manager and they can do it on their own.
So what advice do you give a business owner who, say, wants to exit at a certain point?
Oh, you mean like exit, like
we've talked about your exit, but let's talk about their exit.
Their
so
exit.
That you've helped them achieve a level of success, and now they start looking towards their own future.
Okay.
And often business owners do have a long-term plan of exiting at some point.
Right.
Are you able to help them with that?
Yes, I can. And actually, if they have someone like me from the beginning to set this in place, when they exit, their valuation will be so much more than if they didn't. So if I was in there, then they have everything in place to be able, when they bring on someone who does the valuation, all of that will be, because their contracts are sticky, meaning that someone, I'm not a financial person,
Sure.
but so someone financial will look at it and they see, oh wow, there's this many contracts, so I can give a higher valuation. On the contrast, if a business owner says, I think I'm going to exit in a couple of years, but they don't have anything in place, they're going to get a much lower valuation because they don't have a process. They're going to be in the business probably helping after they sell, because they are not able to scale without them. They can't remove them. So how much time? I was just going to say something that's really quick.
Please, we got all the time you need.
Because it's interesting you bring that up, because right now, everyone's heard of baby boomers, right?
I've encountered one or two.
One or two. And we don't know, in this room, everyone looks young, so
Absolutely.
There's probably no one in here that's
There's
a baby
fountain of
boomer.
youth outside. It helps.
But baby boomers, basically, they're born between, I think, 46 and 64. It's a huge, they're 40% of business owners are small, are baby boomers. So they're going to retire, and 10,000 baby boomers retire each day. So this is a huge group of people. What's going to happen? Are they going to get the most out of it? Are they going to, what's the succession plan? Are they going to sell to someone? Are they going to have a family member take over or someone? Those are all questions they need to ask themselves, and they really need a 3 to 5 year, what is that called, path or runway.
Gotcha.
To do it successfully.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insight. But second, I want to ask you one last question before I ask how people can get in touch with you. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've gotten in your career?
Okay, there's a tie for 2, and I think it's really important. And one of them is, you can have a million problems until it's a health problem, then you only have one. So we
Wow.
can talk about business, we can talk about career and goals, but really, when you're on a plane and, the flight attendant says, put on your oxygen mask before you put it on someone else. Well, you've got to always take care of your health because then that's your physical and your mental and emotional health. Then you're able to be a good family member. And then we're a whole person. We're not just a business owner. Then you're able to be successful in your business. So I think that's one. The other one is love who you are because all your little quirks and everything, that's what makes you different. And that's what makes your business different.
My mom says it makes me special.
Yep. That's right.
Well, Jeane, thank you again. Jeane Gutierrez, founder of Action Plan Sales. And Jeane, what's the best way for folks to reach you?
The best way is to go into the Cherokee Business Radio website.
Okay. We will have all that contact information posted there. I hope, are you able to hang out while we talk to the rest of our guests today?
Oh, absolutely. I can't
Wonderful.
wait to hear.
Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Jeane Gutierrez. Action Plan Sales. So moving on to someone I've known for, well, let's just say a little while, but certainly longer than a moment. I'd like to introduce my friend, my own personal insurance broker, and an unbelievable senior partner with Risk and Insurance of North Georgia, Dorris. Good morning,
Thank you,
Dana.
Joshua. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help.
Okay, so I am a 20-year veteran. That makes me sound old in the risk.
You started it too.
That's right. In the risk management and insurance industry, I have worked both in the agency field as well as on the corporate side. So it enables me to understand, what goes on behind the scenes with underwriting and rating and product solutions and that sort of thing, as well as being able to serve the community as an insurance agent.
Okay. I said broker. I apologize.
It's okay.
I used
It's
the wrong
okay.
term.
It's fine. It's
I'm
fine.
so sorry. So in the time we've known one another, and as you mentioned, you've kind of held different roles within the sphere of insurance. What would you say are the biggest things you've learned on that journey?
So, gosh, it's such a wide spectrum of things that I've learned. I think, when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, I think that it comes down to serving the client. And I think that you learn throughout, whether you're the feet on the street, talking with the clients in the community, or you're at the senior most corporate level, the end result is the same, that you're trying to serve that client and do what's best for them. So I think that's the most important lesson is just when you peel the onion back, you're at the end of the day, you're taking care of the client.
Okay. Well, and in taking care of the client in particular to that journey, tell us a little bit about Risk and Insurance of North Georgia, because I happen to know they take good care of their clients.
Right. So
what makes you different?
Okay. So Risk and Insurance Consultants, I'm going to start there, is our Atlanta office. And it was founded back in 2006 by two gentlemen, Bobby Kitchen and Steve Molina. And they have a great agency. And in 2022, I decided to partner with them to open Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia. It's a local agency. It's quite different. The Atlanta office focuses a lot on large commercial. They do have a personal lines department, life and health, all of the things, right? But the North Georgia office was specifically designed to be that neighborhood agency where we could really focus in on the community and be that that one-stop shop there in our North Georgia location. We focus primarily on personal lines. We do some small business as well. And it's been great. It's been a lot of fun integrating into the North Georgia community. That's where Steve, who serves as the president of Risk and Insurance Consultants, and then we both live in the Emerson area, and the agency is right there.
Sure. And you and I run into each other at networking events all the time.
We do.
So I know when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that there were really some interesting new products that you've embraced and kind of created to bring forward. I think one of them was the Essential, and then the Rev Match Motorsports Insurance.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about
Correct.
those so that
Sure.
people that are looking for those things will know they're available?
Sure. So listening to Jeane speak about marketing and sales plans and that sort of thing, it kind of ties in. So the insurance market has changed dramatically over the last 3 years. I'm sure you all see it within your pocketbook, right? As you're paying premiums and as you're shopping your insurance and all of the above. Well, Essential was born November of 24 out of a need. And so basically what Essential is a non-standard department of Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia. And what do I mean by that? So
Please.
Underwriting guidelines really tightened. The market became what we call in the insurance industry a hard market. And we had to start looking for other solutions for our clients so that they could even qualify for auto insurance.
It's become that big of a problem.
Some people that had standard insurance all of a sudden became substandard. And we felt like it was our responsibility and duty to make sure that we were able to provide a product to them so that they could meet the guidelines for the state of Georgia. So Essential was born out of a need, and it just so happened that we had an employee at Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia that had previously specialized in the non-standard market. So she came in, and we've been able to find a solution for our clients, which has been really great.
And has that been something that they've adopted?
It is. It's nice. It's nice to be able to, they call in for an auto quote, and our agents that would typically say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. It's been nice to be able to offer something that's, taking care of their need. In addition, we've become a referral source for other exclusive agents in our area that doesn't have that non-standard market.
That's fantastic. So it's something that you can offer.
It is. And to time back how I started with Jeane is that, we looked at a sales plan where we couldn't sell a lot of auto insurance too on our side. So we were able to, think about how can we help our community, but also bring in a different sales acquisition process. So
sure.
A little bit of both.
Sure. And the Rev Match Motorsports?
So Rev Match is just launching now. I'm really excited about it.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So it is a motorsports insurance department. We'll call it a department of our agency. And so we will be specializing in collector cars, which we've done a lot of anyway, race teams, racing facilities, a lot of things that pertain to cars. So performance shops. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I have a list.
How did you get into that space?
Okay, so Joshua and I met 25 years ago. We were both in the car business.
It was more of a daycare center.
Well, we'll let you go with that.
Fair enough.
But basically, I love cars. I think it stems from being a young girl and my dad and my brother fixing up old cars in the garage at our house, just fixing up and car shows and, all the things that muscle cars looked like in the 80s, right? And so for me, I've always enjoyed going to car shows. I'm lucky my husband loves cars. And so we may have too many at our house right now, kind of thing.
I know a
And
lady that can get great insurance.
I know. And then Steve Molina, who I mentioned earlier, serves as our president of Risk and Insurance Consultants. He too loves cars. And so he was doing a lot on the racing side, and I was doing a lot on the collector car side. So we decided to brand this thing
That's
and
fantastic.
name it RevMatch. And RevMatch has a specific meeting. Steve can explain it way better than I can. But when you're racing, it has to do with the RPMs and the gas that you give, and it translates over to insurance because for us, it's all about the risk management side and making sure that we are understanding our clients and we are understanding what we need to do to provide them the best overall coverage that's going to take care of their needs. And so we've been, dabbling in this motorsports insurance and just decided to attack it full force because what we've learned being out in the industry is that not a lot of people understand cars, understand the racing, but they also don't understand the risk management component because there are a lot of things that we do anyway, and we might do it for a restaurant. We might do it for a car dealership. We might do it for a manufacturer already that just translates beautifully over to this motorsports arena because we are able to make sure they have everything in place. There's
Sure.
a lot of different areas.
I can't even begin to imagine, but I would have to think that the person that's drawn to motorsports, they understand risk management in a different way.
Right. That's right. That's
How
right.
fast can I go around the corner is their version of risk management.
I know. So we're really excited about it.
Well, so you touched on earlier the fact that you grew up around cars, that your dad and your brother were into cars, but it makes me ask the question of thinking about your life and your work. You're active, I know for a fact, in the community to an extreme level. You've got new products that you're offering at work. How do you keep it all balanced?
Oh, well, sometimes there's not enough hours in the day. That is absolutely for certain. But I think it's important at the end of the day to make sure that what comes first. And my family is very, very important to me. So sometimes I do have to turn it off just like everybody else to be able to go home and spend time with the ones I love. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm in a little different scenario now. Maybe I'm a little seasoned agent in more ways than one, right? My kids are grown. My husband loves cars. My husband is also in the insurance industry, so he brings a whole another level of education and experience from the claims perspective that helps me with my clients make sure, too, that we're handling everything professionally and to the best of our ability because I know what goes on the other side of the coin when the claims happen. So
you're able to collaborate and
we
give a
collaborate
full
all
picture.
the time, maybe a little too much.
That's great. Well, that's the secret to success, both personally and professionally, learning to work with one another, right?
Right.
So I guess the listening to the personal side of your life a little bit and trying to understand more about that and knowing that in the foundational days of our mutual careers, we worked with some pretty incredible people and some remarkable people, using that word in its broadest sense. I know what I took away from it, but what would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm gonna say two things. Number one, my dad always says that if you love what you do, it's not a job.
Okay.
And I do love what I do. And so I feel a passion still 20 years later about helping people and making sure that, they have what they need. My little tagline has always been protecting today and preparing for tomorrow. So I feel I own that. And then my other thing is, things don't always go as you expect for them to go in your career, right?
No.
Sad but true. You may have the best intentions, but sometimes things don't work out. And I know in 2020, I was involved in a reduction in force, right? And so I lost my job after 16 years with the same carrier, and it was very difficult. I used to
Must have
feel
been
sorry
really hard.
for people who go through are forced to go through a career change. And I was 50, so I felt sorry for people who had to go through that, and then all of a sudden I was one. And I was on the great base of wisdom tree called LinkedIn, and I
We can all get
saw
a good laugh
right,
out of that.
right, and I saw a quote, and it stuck with me, and it basically said, "You can get bitter or you can get better. It's your choice." And so I chose to get better, and that's when Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia was born. And I think that was excellent advice from an unknown source.
That's fantastic advice, and it's a great point for us to wrap up. Thank you for sharing everything about Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia. Quick question: the Essential and the Rev Match, are those both available now?
They are.
Wonderful.
They are.
What's the best way for folks to reach you?
So our main agency line is 470-689-0151.
Okay.
And I can be reached there.
Fantastic. And we'll also have the information on our website when all of this goes live. So anybody that didn't get that number can check there to get a hold of you via all the normal social ways and even pick up some additional insight from the occasional anonymous quote. Are you able to stay with us for just a little bit longer?
I am. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you again for having me today, Joshua.
Thank you. And Jeane, thank you as well for being here. So let me introduce our third guest. This is Mr. Richard Flournoy, and Richard and I met through professional channels. He was actually a client of mine, and then he was not a client of mine through no choice of our own, but he became a fantastic friend, a trusted consultant, an advisor, and I've learned more from him than I think I ever taught him as a teacher. Let me please introduce Richard Flournoy, the co-founder of Lux and Rome Travel out of White, Georgia. Also, the co-founder of Deep Dive Plumbing and Drain, and a consultant with Service Titan. So, Richard, welcome. What on earth are you doing now?
Well, when Joshua called me to ask me to do this, I was like, what in the heck is this about? And I said, well, really, do you really need to think about what this is about? It's Joshua. Just do it. So I didn't put much thought to it, and I just showed up. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of Dr. Morabian of UCLA, but he has a 7-38-55 rule. And 55% of communication is the body language, 38% is your tone and inflection, and 7% is the words you say. Now, I know none of y'all can see the body language in this room, but it's absolutely amazing. And what I realize that this show is about people helping people, because we're all in the people business. And as I'm listening to both these ladies talk, I'm like, I could use her in my future business, and I could absolutely use her in my future business. And their stories are amazing, and the tone, and you can tell by the tone and inflection by how genuine they are, but watching their body language tells the whole story. And while we won't remember everything that they said, I'll remember how they made me feel today and the way Joshua made me feel in this room. So thank you for inviting me on here.
Well, thank you for being here. So let's take them one at a time. And I actually skipped over one of your businesses, which is Flournoy Consulting, which you already led with. So tell us a little bit about what Flournoy Consulting is and who you help and how you help.
Well, if we could go back in time a minute, I would rather go back in time. So in 2001, the day after September 11th, I started my first business, A Total Plumbing. And I had a very, very weak why. I wanted to start it because I didn't like working for somebody. So for the first 16 years of that business, I operated by the law of accident, which means that I didn't have a plan, and I just kind of floundered around. And in 2017, I discovered the law of cause and effect. And what that means is that if you have a plan and you execute on that plan, and you learn and you do, and you learn and you fail, and you fail and you do, and you learn that you're going to succeed. And I also learned that if you have a strong enough why, you can bear any what. So the why went from I didn't want a boss to I want to be a provider for my family. My wife, Felicia, who's also a master plumber, my daughter, who just got accepted into law school,
Congratulations.
and my 21-year-old son that lived his first year of life in Choa, and they sent him home after a year, said he's not going to make it very long, but we want you to spend time with him. He's been on a ventilator since birth. And because he was we had such a strong why to take care of him. Now he's 21, about to celebrate his 22nd birthday. And we went to our first adult hospital, and they've never seen a kid like Jackson that's on a ventilator because typically they don't live this long. And so they didn't really know how to do it, which is a testament to the love and the power of God and the goal setting and the strong why. But he's going to be 22. And then my why is still the same, provide for my wife and kids. And so I kind of do a lot of things, but the primary thing that I want to do is help people, whether it's through Flournoy Consulting, whether it's through transformative travel through Lux and Rome Travel, or whether it's through Flournoy Consulting. When I started that first business, it was with a rented van that I paid $50 a week to my grandfather, and it had no air conditioning. It was painted with house paint, and I literally had $250 in the bank, and I grew it, and I sold it for 10 figures in 2022. And then I resold it a second time and made more money off of it. And then I thought I was done with the plumbing business. So I started a consulting company, and I became a professional speaker and coach. And so far I've coached an OCD therapist, an attorney, a heating and air company, and a plumbing company.
And what type of coaching do you provide, Richard?
So I do mindset and goal setting, because business is 95% mindset and 5% strategy. But that 5% strategy has to be so good that it equals that 95%. But if you don't have the mindset, then the strategy is worthless, absolutely worthless. So I help bridge the gap to just know that you can do it, but you got to have clear written goals. And you got to have the right mindset, and you got to have that deep why. And like everybody has a why, but you have to clarify it and you have to write it down. And then the mind can only think about one thing at a time, whether positive or negative. And so anytime I had a negative thought, I'd pull out this index card and it would have my why, or I'd look at a picture of my son and my wife and my daughter, and then it would say, that's why you got to keep going.
Pretty powerful motivation.
So that's a little bit about me. And I know the Lux and Rome, it sounds like I'm doing a lot of things, but they all complement each other, because travel is one thing that people neglect, that a lot of people work, and they'll go on a little vacation here and there, but they don't truly release. And in order to really activate your superconscious mind, you've got to go on a vacation where you forget about the world.
You
forget about everything.
So tell us about that. Tell us what. So you and Felicia and your family have traveled quite a bit, as you've shared with me. What drew you to this completely different arena from where you had been?
So my daughter and I had, because of our son that's on a ventilator, my wife and I have to juggle trips. So she'd have to go on a trip, or I'd have to go on a trip, because the logistics are just too difficult because Jackson is so medically fragile. So my daughter and I had been on many trips. My wife had been on many trips with my daughter. And then I was like, you can accomplish any goal if you have a strong enough why. And I'm like, I can figure out a way for me and my wife to go on a really good trip. So 2 years ago, I went on a trip, took my wife to Italy, and the logistics to set it up was a lot.
Sure.
But I wrote down the goal, and then all of a sudden you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and you're like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. So we laid out a plan, backup plan, so that for people to take care of Jackson. And we went on a trip to Italy. And the first 2 days, even though I was not in any business at all at that point, because I'd sold my business and I hadn't started Flournoy Consulting and I hadn't started Lux and Rome Travel yet, So the first 2 days I'm still thinking about, I'm like calling Josh, and Josh is like, quit calling me. You're on vacation. And so it took me 2 days to get into it. But then when we were in Italy and we started going around, and I'm like, you know what? This is something I neglected my whole career, is travel, like traveling. Cause while it's extremely fun and rewarding to travel with one of your family members, it's much more rewarding to travel with everybody in your immediate family. So I was like, how can I give back and teach people about going on transformative trips that will transform their lives? And I'm like, I can start a travel agency, and then I can start a consulting business. And so immediately when I started the consulting business, I had 2 people call me and just randomly say, hey, could you help us with our business?
So back up. Basically, what you're saying is leisure travel opened your mind and relaxed your brain enough that you immediately came back and thought of new business.
100%. And so that's how it works all together. So
you heard it here. You need to take a vacation, take a clarity break in order to move forward.
A really good vacation. And whether you book if you contact me through Lux and Rome, whether you book a trip through me or you just want me to help you come up with some ideas, I'll do it no charge. It's more important for me to help you than it is for me to make money. 100%.
That's a great perspective. Information is what changes everybody's perspective on everything. And I think that it was Mark Twain who said something to the effect about how travel opens the mind. So till you get around the planet some, you don't really have that great perspective. So we've got Lux and Rome. We've got Flournoy Consulting. Let's talk a little bit about Service Titan and a little bit about Deep Dive Plumbing and Drain.
So Service Titan, I was a customer of Service Titans.
So back up, for those who don't know, could you tell us what Service Titan is?
Service Titan is a software company that handles everything from taking the call all the way through the documenting of the work order, and then integrates with the like QuickBooks or Sage Intacct. So basically, it's a field management software
for all industries.
For plumbing, heating and air, roofing, electrical, pest control.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. So you help bridge the gap in knowledge there. Is that what you do in the role with Service Titan?
Well, so I put a goal on a vision board to get a job at Service Titan because I really love the people and the culture. But that's all I put on there. So I ended up going to a speaking academy class in San Diego, California, and the chief revenue officer of Service Titan lives out there. And I had met him and became friends with him because we were a customer. And I told him I wanted a job there. And he's like, well, what would you do? I sold him on giving me a job, but neither one of us knew what I was going to do there.
Okay.
So
sales coaching also.
So he gave me a job, and then I work in the sales team, and basically I do sell core product, which is new customers. I sell pro products, and then I also coach team members that work in Service Titan.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then last, we round out on Deep Dive Plumbing and Drain. What can you tell us?
Sometimes you set a goal and you're led to something else. So not change the goal, but led to something else. So I had set a large revenue goal for my consulting business and travel business. And then all of a sudden this opportunity pops up where I could restart a plumbing company. And I don't know if it's God's way or the universe's way of telling me that, hey, this might be a little bit of a stretch in those spaces, or if we're just going to exceed that goal and have another business. And they all work together because when I open this business, I'm not going to actually work in the business. I'm going to work on the business. My wife is going to work in the business, but it'll be more of a coaching and training perspective. And so the goal is to have it open by May 28th.
Okay.
And the goal is to get to 12 trucks by the end of 2026.
That's certainly an ambitious goal, but you've done this before, so I think you know that arena. Well, then let me ask you this. Last closing thoughts are, what's a mistake that helped shape your career? What's something that you did wrong that helped get you right?
I would say that everything. I mean, everything.
Well, clearly you haven't done everything wrong.
No. So it's fail and learn. Don't be afraid to fail. Success is goals and all else is commentary. And to go back to it, like the biggest killer of success is inaction. You can have all the greatest ideas in the world, but if you don't get up and try it, then what good is it? And so if you try it, people don't try stuff because they're worried about failing, but don't worry about failing. Cause guess what? Most people that like, I'm a black belt in Danjutsu martial arts. The hardest step for somebody to become a black belt is to become a white belt because most people don't even start.
That's a great perspective.
And so just starting will help you finish and just stick with it.
Well, my head is full of lots of quotes because my mom was a librarian, now retired. And I think it was Walt Disney that said a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. He also said it all began with a mouse. So, take what you want from Walt. But thank you for sharing your insight, Richard. Thank you for sharing your guidance. Any final piece of advice for anybody that's looking to get started on goals?
My passion is the consulting. So if you wanted to reach out to me and do a free session, like just to learn about your why and your goal setting, and you can find 100 books on digging into your why and goal setting, but I can put it in a way that you can actually get it accomplished in your life.
All right.
And if you want to do that single session, I wouldn't charge anything for it. And as far as contacting me, I'm going to defer to my colleague, and you're going to look on the website for my contact information.
That's our closing question. Ask the best way to reach you. So we'll have your information along with Jeane Gutierrez from Action Plan Sales, Dorris from North Georgia Risk and Insurance Consultants of North Georgia. I knew I'd get it right. It's a tongue twister. And Richard Flournoy from Flournoy Consulting, Lux and Rome Travel, Service Titan, and ultimately Deep Dive Plumbing and Drain. Thank you all for coming in and for sharing your experience, your perspective, and all of the things that you do to help the people of our community excel. Thank you all.
It was fun.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. This is Joshua Kornitsky saying goodbye for now from Cherokee Business Radio.